Today, let's do something different. Let's take our conversations in a lighter mood. And perfect enough that I have a guest who actually has his own way of shedding his own light. He has a light atmosphere. This friend who not only is also a jolly and outgoing person, but is also driven and determined in the course of life. So, who am I talking about? Let's meet him, Vince Salubo. Hi, Vince. How are you?
Hi, Earl. I am doing perfect today. How are you?
I'm doing good. Thank you for asking, and thank you very much for saying yes to the show.
Of course, and I kind of love the way you did that introduction right there, kind of giving me a bit of a pressure to keep that jolliness and that energy all throughout. But yeah, I'm gonna do my best.
Well, but you don't have to. I mean, don't pressure yourself. Just be you. Be somebody the world will see. What we see, that's what they also see. All right.
Of course, let's do that.
All right. So let's start with this, Vince. If you were to describe your life in one word, what would it be and why?
Wow, that's a really good question. I'm going to answer that question based on the situation that I am in right now. So if I'm going to describe where I am at this point of time, that word would be serenity. You know, I
Wow.
I I quit my job. Maybe it's been months that I'm enjoying that serenity. You know, I don't have to beat the traffic. I don't have to wake up early and check tons of emails at home. And while on the way to work, I'm already on meetings online. So that phase is gone already. So now I am enjoying the stillness of time and trying to just do things a bit slow and enjoy the sunshine, see the butterflies, enjoy the flowers, those kind of things.
How I wish I am at your state right now. Because I think for all our listeners who are still in the hustles of going to work, I'm sure they wish they are at your state right now. But I'm pretty sure there's a story behind all of this. And it's a reminder also that that's what we also need into our lives. But the thing is, you're fortunate enough that you're soaking yourself into the serenity that you need very badly for a long time after what you've been through. So that's something that we can listen and understand as Vince shares his story. So you've mentioned about serenity. Now,
Mhm.
how did you come into the point that you are in that phase and how were you able to come this far?
Well, let me tell you a story real quick. I started working when I was 19 years old, maybe, and after graduating college, I went straight to work. I started as a legal secretary of my uncle, and he has this law firm, big one in Mindanao, and he did real estate, agricultural properties. So it's kind of big. So we got a lot of clients. So when I started working as his secretary, no one's actually there to help me figure things out but myself. So I started just reading on old documents, browsing through a lot of paperwork. So I get to learn things by myself and get a hang of it. It took me maybe a couple of months. And there's a lot of clients every single day, every morning lining up, queuing for documents, for signatures, asking for different documents you can think of, special power of attorneys, affidavits, all those things. And from that moment on, my life was kind of busy. Everything was too fast. I moved too fast. And I would say 20 years passed. I felt like things are like different now. I don't want to do an age reveal, but yeah, maybe I will do, right? So I'm now 40. So 19 and now I'm 40, 21 years passed and I felt like, oh, things was moving way too fast. And I think it's time for me to just take things slow. And not just because I thought of it overnight. There's a lot of planning behind that. One thing that made me decide to take things slow is that because we're 40 and our body changes and there's like health matters. So we started to get higher numbers when it comes to high blood pressures and those kind of things. And our body, when we come to this age, we barely can handle stress. A lot of cortisol's going on. Our body can't adapt to just real quickly control the stress levels. So that's when I made a decision to take things slow, and you really don't have to be scared of what's to come. There's always that fear of not knowing what's to come, and we became anxious. But for me, I always tell people, even my friends before, that you don't have to be afraid, because fear is just a false interpretation appearing real. So I told myself, you know what? It's not too late for me to just take things slow. And sometimes people might think, oh my goodness, you're already 40. You don't have to be on that phase anymore. That should have been done like maybe when you're starting at your 30s or maybe late 20s. But I believe that every one of us has our own pacing and a timeline. So we really don't have to rush things out.
And I think it all makes sense that you really needed
Yeah.
that breather. I'm
Yeah.
actually glad for you in that. I think it's time for you to get that balance after you've been hustling for so many years. So I'm just curious about it, Vince.
Mm.
Did you have a dream for yourself that you wanted to achieve in life? Or when you worked for your uncle at the law firm, is that your dream in life?
No, that wasn't my dream. When I started working as a legal secretary, I can't envision of anything for myself in the future. And I felt like I was too young. In my generation, when we were like 19 or 20s, early 20s, we are like a free-spirited kind of people. Maybe it's just me, I don't know with the rest, but at my age, at that point of time, I really didn't have any concrete dream. All I want to do is just maybe I started working, get some money, and maybe just give it to my parents, and then maybe I can just buy my own stuff or things that I wanted. That's it. But nothing's for the long run. Everything is a short burst. But when I started to work abroad, because I made a decision to work and live outside the Philippines, that's when things changed and my perspective changed. And one of the dream that I had was really to travel around the world, experience
Wow.
different cultures, visit different places, unique places, meet different people, races, and experience the way how they live life and appreciate every creation that God put in this world. And I kind of achieved that a bit, I would say, but not really 100% to travel all the places in the world. But at this point of time, I'm still unsure of what will be the next journey, but I'm taking my time, so I don't really worry much for now.
Oh, that's good to hear, actually. And hearing your dream, I just hope in your period right now to take time to travel. I know there are other factors to consider, but I'm
Mm.
hoping that things will really fall into place.
Yeah, and those listeners right now, your viewers, those who are planning to travel and visit different places, do it while you're young. Because when you get older and that's when you decide to travel, things will be different. You kind of have that, sakit na konti ill, and then my back hurts, those kind of things. And then you want to sleep more rather than exploring the city that you're visiting. So while you're young, do it because the energy is kind of different compared to when you're older. So yeah.
Well, you do have a point right there. Yeah, while you're
Yeah,
physically able to
physically
travel,
able.
then do so. That's good advice,
Yeah.
actually, you have right there, Vince. So let's note that. Now let's talk the story behind your 21 years of your grind. You have been into the bank industry. You have also been in the real estate industry, and you've also been part of the business process outsourcing industry. This is the career that you've had with after your stint in the law firm. How did you cross over from working for your uncle's law firm into the corporate industry?
Well, the crossing over part started with this story. I haven't shared this story with a lot of people, but I'm gonna share it here in your
All right.
show.
All
So
right.
back in 2005, when I was with my uncle as his secretary doing legal stuff, he wanted me to take over his office. No, he's kind of old. I'm not, he's kind of old. That was the wrong word. So he's about to retire, maybe just a few years of that year, 2005. And he said, I've got no one to really take over this office, and I don't want this law firm to die with me. So he said, I want you to take and study law. And I said, oh my goodness, I don't want to go back to studying. I don't want to go back to school. I don't want people telling me what to do, being a free spirited person. So that's a big no no. So one day I got home and my mom told me, hey, you've got a letter waiting for you in it. So I opened it and started reading it. And I saw, oh my goodness, this is like a full transcript. My uncle enrolled me without even me knowing. And I said, nah, this is not happening. So what happened that night? I made a bold decision to run away from home. prodigal son much.
Oh.
So I started
Oh.
packing up my things. I packed them in my small suitcase and I said, I'm gonna go to Manila because that's where my uncle lives. My favorite uncle lives. And I want to go there and maybe ask for help or maybe start a career somewhere in Manila. Then after packing up my things, that was around maybe I would say 1 in the morning. I said, oh, it's too early. And I didn't have sleep and I wanted to take a nap. So I wanted to take a nap at that time. And I said, oh, I'm just going to take a nap for an hour maybe. So I did. Unfortunately, I didn't set the alarm. And I woke up. It's already 8 in the morning. My parents are downstairs now drinking their morning coffee. And I said, oh my goodness,
My
what am I going to
goodness.
do? And I said, oh, I have no other choice. So I went down the stairs and I said, hey, good morning. And my parents said, where are you going? Because I went down the stairs with my small suitcase and with a backpack. And I said, I'm going to run away from home because I don't want to go back to school. I don't want to study law at all. I don't feel like studying. I just want to live my life in my own terms. And my mom said, okay, if that's what you want, where are you planning to go? And I said, in Manila to go to my uncle. And then she said,
Oh,
okay.
this
Then
uncle
I,
is your other uncle, right?
yeah, it's my dad's older brother.
Oh, so it's a
So
different uncle from the law
yeah,
firm,
it's a
right?
different
All right.
uncle. My uncle, the law firm is from my mother's side.
All right.
So my dad said, "No, okay, I'm gonna let him know that you're going there. Then just good luck." And they wished me good luck. And I said, "You know what? Can you bring me to the terminal?" And he said, "Okay, we'll drive you to the terminal." That was really funny. So they drove me to the terminal, and then I was sitting in the bus. The memory is too vivid. I was looking at my parents, like my mom was sobbing. I said, "Oh." But I didn't feel anything. I was feeling like the excitement of exploring, of living my life my own terms. So the bus left. And when I reached Cagayan de Oro City, I went to like a ticketing outlet and I said, you know what, can I book a ticket to Manila? And then they said, oh no, unfortunately, we don't have any trips to Manila. We have to wait for like maybe the following day. And I said, oh, I want to leave now. And then the lady at the counter said, oh, we have a trip going to Cebu. You want to go to Cebu instead? And I said, you know what? Let's do that. So I booked a ticket to Cebu. I have no relatives, no friends at all. It's like a gamble. And I said, just let it be. Whatever comes to mind when I get there, I'll do it. When I arrived to Cebu, I took a cab and then I said to the cab driver, sir, can you take me to the famous call center here in Cebu? And that was early 2006.
Mm.
And he said, you know what? My daughter works in this call center and I think she's happy there. I'll take you there. So he took me to I2 building. I think at that time there were only 4 buildings in IT Park. So I was carrying my suitcase with me, my backpack. I went to the recruitment lobby and I said to the security, where can I leave my stuff? Because I'm here to apply. I said, just leave it there and go straight in. So I had my interview and same day I got hired. That was, I think, a
Wow.
Thursday, if I'm not wrong. And then they said, you can start on Monday. I said, oh, that's just perfect. So I still have time to rest. And after the interview, I've got no place to stay. So I started asking people around, where can I get a room right here, like maybe nearby? Then they said, you know what, just walk over there. That was in Apas. So I walked and looked for like a room to stay. The first place that I saw with a room for rent, I took it. Had a good sleep that day, then waited until the next day, Friday morning. Then I started exploring Cebu. And I think that's where my journey started.
Wow. It just goes to show the kind of person you are. Have you settled with your uncle on this one, by the way?
I did. I think that was after 6 months that I settled in Cebu. I decided to go back to Gidnon and I visited my uncle and confronted him because I didn't even tell him that I left and no one's there to help. So when I left, he actually asked someone to cover me to be his secretary. I went there and I said, I'm sorry, just want to live my life in my own terms and this is what I want. And he said, what a waste, but that's fine. And that's it. After that, I went back to Cebu and I started building my career as a call center agent back in 2006. Being in a BPO industry at that time was not that hard, it was easy. I decided to take a managerial role, being a team lead, a team manager, and eventually I moved to join a bank, JP Morgan. That was in 2010. They just started here in Cebu, so I want to be part of the pioneer
Right.
employees. I stayed there for 2 years. And after that, I made another bold decision to travel and move overseas and joined one of the bank in Singapore.
You know, your life is like in the movies, like you know those scenes coming him right there. How did you come into that decision and what were your fears that caused you to hesitate until you came into terms like this is going to be the next step of my career?
One thing that I learned when I came to Cebu back in 2006 was that there's really no need for you to be scared and to fear the unknown because it's always my mantra, maybe growing up, because I grew up in a Baptist church. And I always have this like, si Lord na bahala, because everything is already pre-planned. So why worry about things? I have this favorite verse and I want to share with all your listeners right now.
Sure.
It's the book of Philippians chapter 4, verses 6 to 7, and it says, do not be anxious about anything, but in every situation, by prayer and petition, with thanksgiving, present your request to God. And the peace of God, which transcends all understanding, will guard your hearts and minds in Christ Jesus. That's the verse that I hold on to. And when I went to Singapore, yeah, there's still fear, but I said, why would I be anxious? I prayed for this, and so God will be with me every step of the way. Things will just fall into place if you have that trust and confidence that God will always be with you. And that's what I hold on to. So that's why even with my decision to be in this serenity mode, things will just eventually fall into place because si Lord na bahala. Just trust God and good things will follow.
I would say that is one of the seeds planted before you came into
Mm,
your serenity mode. And that was
yeah.
actually a good one planted into there. Then I'm sure that was harvested in its right time. Because come to think of it, we are reminded not to be afraid because every day we are filled with uncertainties, and the only way to really calm ourselves is to really trust Him. And I think this is one of the things that will draw us near to God. That was really amazing. So you mentioned you work in the banking industry. How was it
Mm.
like? What are the challenges and what were the important lessons that you learned from there?
The main challenge that I encountered before was adapting to a different culture. It's all about building relationships. It's all about embracing the cultural differences. So
Mhm.
that happened when I went to Singapore and joined one of their local banks, and it's a semi-government and a private bank. At that time, I think Singapore is already welcoming to foreign workers, but not that much welcoming because you're different. You look different and you sound different. So when you join and it's a government bank, of course, people will be staring at you and will be asking you questions like, why are you here? This is a government bank. This is for the locals who live here and you're not a local, those kind of things. I really didn't pay much attention to it and just really move forward. What I did is that humility and being kind will really help you gear it up a bit and will really take you far. People starting to throw stones at you. So you just have to smile at them and really give them that kindness. Be like Christ, shine like Christ. And people will eventually look at you differently. They will just give up and say, you know what, he's actually different. And eventually people started to be accepting and we even became close friends, especially those we call us the aunties. The aunties will started bring you food at work and started feeding you their food. And things starting to change and you become good friends with them, that kind of relationship. Maybe being me, just being so organic, I made friends with them, built that professional relationships with them. So I kind of overcame that hurdle eventually. And until now, it's been 13, 14 years. Those people who started to dislike me before became really good friends of mine until today.
I would say that's an enduring part of your
Yeah.
story right there. Many people are saying that you're living your best life, you're earning more in Singapore, your life has gotten better, but not all people know for sure the challenges that you personally face aside from discrimination, but also having to live on your own where the means of living is also very high and homesickness and all these things. So can you tell us the story behind all of these?
Things did not start easy and there will be a lot of challenges, roadblocks, but you really have to be firm You have to move forward. Giving up is not an option because you're already there. Might as well just continue. Yeah. So just a bit of a background. The later part of my stint in Singapore, I worked as a risk manager and I was dealing with different types of scams, fraud, modus from
Wow.
scammers. And that wasn't easy because I have to be on call 24/7, really 24/7, because let's say there's a suspected fraud. I get a call from a police or from a staff from other bank, and they will tell me, can you help me with this transaction? Can you block it? I'm one of those with access, so I have to get into the system and block those transactions and make sure that I do it timely, because if I don't act fast, money might be debited from the account, and that's financial loss. I have to answer for that, face some consequences. So I have to be alert all the time. But it's not good mentally and physically because I don't get enough sleep daily, getting calls. So I made another bold decision actually after that. I said, this is not working for me. And there's one thing that happened Q4 of 2019, if you can remember, it's COVID-19. And
Right.
it was a blessing in disguise for me because when COVID-19 happened, things changed. I think everyone can relate. The way we see
Right. Right.
things, the way we define life drastically changed. And early 2020, in the midst of the pandemic, every one of us was sent home to just work from home. Working from home was not a thing in Singapore before. So
Mm.
everyone started working from home. And it so happened that I was renting a place for myself. I used to have roommates. I was renting a 3-bedroom unit. It so happened that one of my roommate is from Bohol. So he went back home end of 2019. So when the pandemic hit and there was some border controls, he fly back. So I ended up
Mm.
being alone at home for 5 to 6 months, and that made me crazy in a good way.
Oh.
So
Oh.
made me crazy. What I mean is that my perspective in life changed, and I said, you know what? I've been working since I graduated college and really never spent time with my parents, my family, and they are getting older. So I said, this is the best time for me to maybe put a pause on this busy career and go back to the Philippines and spend time with my family. So 2021, that's when there's the ease of restriction. So I decided to end my career in Singapore and I flew back here in the Philippines. I even spent 14 days quarantine here in Cebu before they flew me to Bukidnon.
Mm.
And I stayed in Bukidnon from 2021. I really did spend time with my parents. I even stayed in my parents' house,
Mm.
and asked my mom to mabuhi asa kumaha, something like that. So I had a career break. That was my first Serenity. And I spent time with them, just going with my dad to the mountains, to the farm, feeding his chickens, and I enjoyed doing that. So
Wow.
yeah, a long
You know,
story.
as I've been hearing your story, it goes to show that if you really want something bigger, it really comes at a cost. It really goes to show how things can be so complicated that
Mm-mm,
when you're up the ladder, and I would say that you were sustained with God. And it makes me think that when you came home,
mm,
you've experienced again the simplicities of life. As kids, we want
mm.
to think of big goals we want for ourselves.
Yeah,
I think at that time it's because we didn't know the world that much. I think another factor now that we have grown up is how our world perceives success. And
yeah.
at some point in time that we're eaten by that perspective of success, that at some point along the way we lose ourselves. So which is actually quite funny. That's been a journey for almost all of us, I would say.
Yeah, very true. And when part of growing up, especially in our culture, it's the wanting for more and achieving more at an early stage of our life is something that we cannot get rid of that easy.
Right.
And especially now that we are exposed to social media platforms and we get to see how people live their lives and we kind of compare our lives to them and we wanted to also achieve the same thing, like how they achieve things. And that puts a lot of pressure into our minds, like our mental health gets affected, our emotional states get shaken because of those things. And the secret to that is, yeah, like what you've said, the simplicity of life is something that we need to chase. And it's not the great things that the other people achieve. It's the simplicity that will give us more satisfaction in life. But of course, I'm just saying it because that's the kind of experience that I'm experiencing now, but we do experience different things. So for other
Right.
people, they might disagree, but then again, to his each own. We have our own plans, we have our own dreams. So the most important part there is to live your dream and to just experience life and enjoy life to the fullest. Yeah.
Yeah, you have a good point right there, Vince. And I think also just to clarify, it's a balance between achieving the goals you want and maintaining that simplicities of life in order
Yeah.
to achieve the quality of life that you want. So how long were you able to enjoy that part of serenity in you?
Wow, I actually enjoyed that for 2 years. It was two
Wow.
years. Um,
Wow.
but of course, because my mama is there. No, nagpabuhi ko sa akong mom.
Of
So that
course.
was easy. He agreed, before I made that decision to go back. Of course, I consulted my mom. I said, Mom, can you like buhi me again? And she said, like, oh yes, of course. Okay. And
Supportive mom.
we live in a province, so it's not that difficult. Food, now we can just pick them up at the backyard. There's lots of vegetables and they're fresh. So you can just find food anywhere. So yeah.
I'm sure there should be that shame, like, I don't want to break my mom's back forever. I need to go look for work. I need to keep moving
Mm.
again. And that face.
Well, when I say about serenity, it's not just lying in bed the whole day and not doing anything. That's already being lazy, that's a different thing. Couple of months when I got back in 2021, couple of months after that, of course, you get bored of not doing anything because coming from like a busy and a hectic schedule, waking up with no full schedules on your calendar, waking up with not having thousands of emails to check, you kind of miss that rush, that adrenaline
Mm,
rush. So
mm,
eventually you feel bored and wanting to go back to the workforce and do something different. So, well, in between, I had some small stints being a VA and I worked
mm.
with one of a direct client in the US. It's a real estate offering solar panels. That was good pay actually, and it was an easy job. As long as you can hit 4 sales in a day, then you can just log off and just watch Netflix the entire day if your shift, and then you're still paid. So I did
Wow.
that for a couple of months. Eventually, I said, this is not the job that I want to do for a long run because I want some more action. So I decided to
Oh.
quit, and then after that rest again, and then I said, you know what, why not go back to Cebu? So 2023 of January, I made a decision to, you know what, new year, new start, yay. So I went back to
Ah.
Cebu January 2023 and started looking for a job. Then that's when I started a career. I actually started at one of the captive site. It's a real estate company. I worked with them for maybe 3 months. I'm supposed to be working as an operations manager, but they don't have that position. And they gave me a different kind of position and it didn't work. They offered me to be a trainer. So I did a
Mm,
lot of web training and seminars about customer service, how to talk to clients and all those things. And I said, this is not what I want. So I told them I'm gonna let go of this opportunity and look somewhere else. And then they said, okay, that's fine because a real estate in the US was a bit shaky at that point of time. Then they said that's fine because we're also letting go of some staff. So you
mm,
letting go of this opportunity is okay. So I said, then that's
mm.
it. Then that means this is really not for me. So I went back searching for a different job and then I found the KPO. It's not a BPO, it's a KPO. It's a knowledge process outsourcing company. It's a
Mm.
startup. And I joined them May 2023. I even asked my small group friends when I joined small group in a church, I asked them to always pray for me to find a job that's going to give me like a morning shift and a weekends off because weekends I want to give that time to the church. So I found this
Wow.
job. It gave me morning shift and then it's a weekends off and everything was so perfect. And then 2025 of May, the same month, again, I made a decision to go back to the Serenity mode again because unfortunately, when I joined the company, it's a startup. So the workload kind of built up and I took
Mm.
a higher role to manage operations and HR at the same time. So kind of juggle a lot of things. At the same time, we are also documenting a lot of process and policies. So at this age, 40, and I said my body is having a hard time coping with the demand. And it started to take my weekends off because I have to dedicate the weekends in writing things and doing a lot of reports to ensure that I've got all the reports ready by Monday. It started to take that time that I really wanted for myself so that I can give it to the church. It's just not an overnight decision. So I prayed for it. I spoke to the owner because I report directly to the CEO and I said, uh,
Mm.
I think it's time for me to let go again of this opportunity. I felt like I've been jumping to different companies, but it's not that. It's just really understanding. It's all about self-awareness. We did an Ikigai test. It's the kind of work that I really love to do. It's just that the demand is really heavy and I'm unable to cope with that demand. So I said, I'm going to let it go. And the CEO said, you know what? That's fine because you deserve to rest with all the things you've done here for 2 years. And I said, yeah, I think 2 years. I contributed enough for 2 years. And they said, okay, that's fine. You can just let go. But they gave me like a sabbatical leave. And I like, I don't want that. So I let go completely, but they kept the door open for me. So they said, anytime when you feel like coming back, we're always open for you. So I get messages from time to time and asking me, are you ready to go back? I said, nah, not ready yet. I'm still enjoying this serenity mode. So I'm not anxious. There's no fear of what's to come. I'm in a season where the unknown feels like more of an invitation to really enjoy the moment, every moment of it, because life is so short and just take things slow. It's also good for your nervous system.
Right. As I'm hearing that part of your story, you actually are a person who wants to challenge yourself. You're not only after the money, which is, of course, really a need, but you also want to enrich yourself. And things really do fall into place that they really need something to help you balance life. Just so happened to be a startup. And I did work in a startup before, and I can understand how startups can be so challenging
Yeah.
considering that you're understaffed and
Mm-hmm.
overcapacitated at the
Yep.
same time. So, going back to that phase, were you at one point traumatized? Like what you've experienced in Singapore was something like the same setup that you experienced from the last work that you had?
Well, it wasn't having a feeling of being traumatized about same things that's happening again. I didn't see the events happening that way to me because I always believe that where our destination leads to is dependent on every little decisions that we make. So when I started working at a startup, there's no trauma at all. I actually was happy working with them. Uh,
Mm.
I made a lot of friends, a lot of good friends that built good relationships, professional relationships that even those people who already left the company before I did were still in contact with me. And we are really good friends until today. And what I did before I left, I did a lot of fixing to ensure that operations will run smoothly and then there will be no gaps and it won't be that challenging to those people that I will be leaving behind. So I trained them, I groomed those managers before I left and making sure that they have all the things that they need, the resources and the documents that they need. And I would say that I was able to achieve that. And I'm still with them until today, to be honest. We still have that GC with them. So if they have questions about what to do, where to find, I still answer them, gladly help them with what they need. And sometimes they even ask me to if we can go for coffee dates because they want to have that one-on-ones. And I said, okay, that's fine. I still go out with them and we do one-on-ones and then I give them advice on what to do, especially when it comes to handling clients. And I'm still happy doing it. It gives me that satisfaction.
Thank you for highlighting that because this is also to emphasize that startups are not really that bad after all. Because aside from you knowing overall operations, you can create some sort of camaraderie because you understand more. That's where it humbles you. It's a larger perspective, and that's where you realize how a single thing you do in a company impacts everything as a whole.
Yeah.
So you may not feel it in a very large company, but you'll really realize and understand that. But despite what you've been through, I would say it was a great one, actually, if you look back at
Yeah.
it, because
Yeah.
you've been through the highs and lows of your careers, but you still come up enjoying life. And I think that's important that you just embrace life in its beauty and just make it into something worthwhile.
Yeah, there's zero regrets. Absolutely no regrets at all because those challenges, the ups and downs, the happy parts of the journey, those are integral parts of growing up. It's part of the development that you need as you grow up. And if you come to think of it, those are important particles of life. Without
Right.
them, there will be an incomplete kind of experience. So you're not gonna enjoy life to the fullest if that happens.
Right. It's also a big reminder here. It takes a lot of perspective to accept that instead of asking, what can life give me? But what can I get to make life to be lived worthwhile?
It's like the yin and the yang.
Right, right. That's some sort of balance for
Yeah.
that. So, what can you advise our listeners to seek that serenity for themselves, no matter how busy they are?
What I can advise you guys is that you have to listen to what your body or your mind tells you. It goes back to the self-awareness part that I mentioned earlier. Let's say if, when it comes to work, do not bring work to home.
Right,
Make sure that there's that work-life balance going on. If you're working from home, make sure that you dedicate a working space separate from where you rest. For example, if you work from
right,
home, make sure that you don't work in your bed, that when you wake up, you cannot distinguish the difference as to where is that resting place. And if you work in office, make sure to clock out on time. It's not a bragging right to work late or to spend long hours in the office working. When you end work at 5, make sure that you clock out at 5 and go home. And, there's more things to life outside the big walls in the office.
right,
Yeah. And that serenity, it doesn't have to be like 2 months, 3 months. If you have your vacation leaves, take them,
right.
plan them and make sure that you rest because that's really important.
And this also comes into mind a big reminder that you are the one in charge of balancing your life. So
Yeah.
if your goal is really to maximize your productivity in work, then you really have to plan on it. There are efficient and very effective ways that you'll be able to do your work without having to render overtime. And when it comes to rendering time, it's rendering time when it's needed. Like if there's like an urgent deadline, sometimes it could take a little of your time, but then just remind yourself that it's actually temporary. I mean, like, it's not something that would last every week. Just a little sacrifice can make a big difference, so it won't really overspill. So, maintaining work life balance is something that we all know to ourselves, and it's a skill we all need to develop as our situation goes dynamic.
Yeah, and when we all do get the same 24 hours a day. So it's all about understanding what's important and what's urgent but not important, and what's not important, not urgent, those kind of things. So you have to make sure that you know how to juggle with them to make the most of your time in a day. And like what Earl said, that it's all about task management, not just at work, but also in life in general.
Right, right. And it also comes into my mind that work is just actually a part of our lives. Work isn't
Yeah.
necessarily our entire lives because you mentioned about it that we just only have 24 hours a day. So, how much of that 24 hours is really spent on yourself? You are this kind of person when you're at work, you are this kind of person when you're with your family, you are that kind of person when you're with your friends. But who are you when you're really yourself? And I think that's one thing that we have to put into our mind because at the end of the day, we all go back to ourselves. So I think it's also one thing to note that let's make sure that we don't lose ourselves
Mm.
in what we're doing really in life. And also one key there is never be afraid to take a rest because that's what you need. You can't go a day that you don't have to rest. And at the same time, you don't have to go a day without having to work. So it's that yin yang thing.
Correct.
Thank you for that reminder, Vince. So let's learn about Vince outside his career. Just a fun trivia. We recently became friends because we met each other in the church. I've known his circle of friends, and Vince is actually a person who goes along with them, but he doesn't have to be someone he's not because he actually has his own way of bringing his humor. Like, I've seen one of your constants. That's what he calls his group of friends. One is like the quote unquote rowdy-ish type, one who is the somewhat nonchalant, but also, strikes a punchline or so. But you have punchlines that are so distinct in you it can make people laugh. What makes you you in terms of your happy disposition?
Well, I really don't know because I think growing up, I've always been the joker in a group. I'm always the one who loves to crack jokes and makes people laugh, and that always makes me happy doing it. But It's something that just comes up naturally. I don't even think of cracking a joke or making myself funny, but I think looking at me, sometimes people say, looking at your face, that already makes me laugh, that kind of thing. So yeah, I think it's something natural. Yeah, I'm always like the sunflower in a group.
But you're not really that ugly because there's this notion that, but I mean like I had to comment that because it's like they say like looking at your face it makes you laugh because I had this notion like okay, so are you an ugly person? But no, it's not really that case. It's not really that case though. But to be honest, you're a very dashing person actually.
Wow. Thank you.
I mean, like you have that charm that somebody else would fall for you, I would say. But anyway, I know there are some people who
Mm,
force themselves to be a joker even when they're not, just to ride on the wave. I know we are inspired by people who really have a sense of humor. For me, if you are the kind of person who really wants to learn to study how they make jokes, it's a skill that can be done. But at some point, you will have your own brand of humor. But if not,
yeah.
you can just be yourself. If you lose your authenticity, that loses your impact as a
Mhm.
person and it loses your value for yourself for that case.
Right. Like when you are in a group of people, you don't have to be someone else. Like if you're not a joker, then don't. Just be your authentic self. Like when you're in a room, you have those jokers. And if you're not a joker, you can just sit there, enjoy the jokes and laugh about it because you're like an audience. That will just make perfect sense. You can have a group of people in the same room that everyone is cracking jokes, and that's gonna be boring and weird. You know what I mean? So
Right. And it's also a reminder that you don't have to go into your way pleasing others just
yeah,
so you can impress them. I think
right.
at the end of the day, what people will be impressed the most is who you really are as a
Yep.
person. Because if they can see you who you really are, that's where they genuinely love you without
Mm.
having you making that effort.
Yeah, you're unique. Everyone is unique and everyone is special. So there's always that something special in you that people will appreciate.
Yes, and you're right about that. And that's actually a reminder also I have to set for myself every day as well to
Yes,
really be
it's a good
yourselves.
reminder. Yeah.
And so you're also in a way talented. You
Ah.
know, what I would say since we see each other in church and I see that you have a gift for singing. How were you able to discover that gift of singing?
I think I've shared a while back that I grew up in a Baptist church, and
Right.
growing up in a Baptist church, there's a lot of singing going on. I always go to the Sunday school, of course, because if I don't, my mom's gonna yawi my gilid. Kasi. So I always make sure that I go to the Sunday school. And then after that, I even became one of the Sunday school teachers at the time, teaching kids about Bible and reading them Bible stories. And after that, I joined the church choir. So that's when I realized that, you know what, I can sing. I joined the choir. I was singing the tenor part. And also growing up, my mom used to ask me, not ask, but force me to join singing contest in our barangay or that singing contest in the Plaza Rizal every Sunday. And she'll always ask me to sing Whitney Houston songs, Celine Dion songs, because I still have that soprano voice when I was younger. And well, surprisingly, I get to sometimes win, and I get to win a Julius Bishop bread and a 500 peso prize. And my mom was really, really happy, and she felt like she's like a stage mom. And then after that, I had this ministry where we go around different schools and sing Bible songs to the children. But I really don't consider myself technical to music because I didn't have any training. I don't have that perfect pitch. So I just sing based on how I hear the song and I just mimic how the singer sings the song, something like that. Singing is just part of me. And when I joined back in 2006, I always wanted to join the worship ministry and sing songs, join the praise and worship. But that did not happen until 2023. Finally had the courage to join and really part of me expressing the joy of praising and worshiping God together with all his children.
That's a great tribute. That's really a great way to give back to God what He's
Mm.
given you. And as I've been observing you singing that you're more of the tenor, but you're really singing soprano in church. I mean, like, imagine you being a tenor, you're singing soprano. What if one of those Sundays we'll hear you sing in soprano?
People keep telling me that I have that old kind of voice. It's a bit challenging for me to sing modern songs because I have this old kind of voice. I love singing the old songs, the songs
Mm.
from the 80s, from the 90s, the slow songs, those kind of songs. So
Ah,
I
yes,
even
I
love
see.
to sing classical. So yeah.
I think they have this kind of serenity because the lyrics were so simple. You can actually sing along. It's actually calming to the mind when
Yeah.
you hear about it because I also admit that I'm an old
And
soul
also
for that one. Like I really prefer the classics and age is also a challenge. Our voice changes and so it's getting harder to reach the higher notes, which is understandable, but I'm glad that you made the most of what you can in terms
yeah.
of your singing. And mind you, whenever there are times that I would see you sing, you are not to show off, you are just genuinely being yourself. As you sing a praise and worship song, you make it like your love song
Mm,
to God. You're in that
mm,
moment of being in His presence to sing and being able to lead the congregation to worship. So for me, that's a thumbs up on that. And
yeah.
so you're on the right track for that. And also, aside from Vince's singing, interestingly, he's also good at hosting, in which I'm not that surprised actually, because
Where did you
since
get that?
hmm,
You did a lot of digging, huh?
because you also have this happy disposition. How did you discover yourself to go into hosting?
If I can remember correctly, I was still in high school and one of my friends invited me to join a wedding. And after that, it turned out that they didn't have wedding hosts available at that time. And they asked me, can you host a wedding? I said, huh? So what I did, I asked some friends like, have you tried hosting a wedding? I said, no, but you can join this wedding and see how this person hosts a wedding. So I joined one of wedding and was just really observing how this person did a hosting. Also, I said, oh, I can do that. So I said, okay, then I'll host your wedding. So I did my very first hosting gig at a wedding and it went really fine. I really had so much fun doing it. After that, it's something that I said, I think I love doing this. And when I joined corporate, every time there's an event like Christmas parties or even Mother's Day or Father's Day celebration in the office, they always get to ask me to host the event. And I did. And I think that's where it all started.
So, given these experiences with you as a
Mm.
host, what are some advices that you would like to give to those who really aspire to be hosts?
Wow. That's kind of tough. But what I can say is that those who are planning to host an event or those who are invited to host an event or aspiring to be a host and you haven't done hosting ever, the only advice I can give you is say yes to it. Don't be scared to try
Right.
and just be your authentic self when you do hosting. It is good that you look at other people and maybe try to mimic how they do hosting and how they do transition to different part of the program. Put your own self to it, your own brand. Be unique. You can copy, but at the same time, you just mix yourself to it and will come out something unique as well. But then again, don't be afraid to do it and don't overthink things. And when you're there actually on stage and we start talking, you don't even need like a guide, those paper cards with you. Just understand the program and just go with the flow and then again, be yourself. That's it. Easy as that.
Right. And I think I would also like to add to that. It's normal to feel nervous, most especially
Mm-hmm.
if you really have stage
Yeah.
fright. The only thing for you is you just have to get this done and
Mm.
also to understand your audience. At any event, anything can happen. So it really works that you have adaptability to it as it makes you more sensible and really relevant to your audience.
Yeah, it is also important that you prepare. You need to understand what the event is for. Is it like a serious event or do you need to put some humor to it? Those are important things that you need to learn beforehand. And also, you have to be fluid, like what Earl said. Things will not always go as planned. You can share stories in between. And if there's some technical issues, yeah, just do your own thing. Maybe acknowledge the guests or maybe read the house rules again,
Right.
just to remind people and then maybe insert some jokes, those kind of things.
Yes, and it's normal to make faults, even most
Yeah.
especially if it's your first time. But the more important thing is you learn, you deliver, and you can be able to deliver the kind of
Mm.
hosting that you can give, regardless of any hosting.
Yeah, and eye contact is also a very good trick.
Right,
Keep that
right.
eye contact, keep your audience engaged. And if you keep that eye contact and that kind of engagement, even if you talk nonsense on stage, people will just laugh about it.
Okay, so you mentioned about eye contact. What if I'm a person who
Mhm.
is so overwhelmed by being nervous that at any point in time that you couldn't make any eye contact. How do you manage to handle that?
Well, if you are overwhelmed on stage and you don't know what to do, what I usually do is actually engage the audience. What I do is I walk down from stage and then walk around and ask people how they feel, just to shake things a bit. Or sometimes I introduce some exercise, especially if it's trying to get so overwhelming and things are kind of feeling a bit cramped. So what I do is I will tell people to maybe just pause and maybe shake their hands and do some a bit of exercise to warm things up a bit. And again, go around and ask people like what their thoughts are and how they feel about this event and those kind of things. That kind of transition will bring you back on your feet and will also at the same time will make the program a bit interesting.
Very well said, Vince, of your tips for hosting. We've talked a lot about things, about life, and everything in between. So,
Yeah.
just to wrap this up,
Mm.
what wakes you up early in the morning?
Wow. That's a very serious question they got there. But what wakes me up in the morning lately is the thrill, the quiet thrill of possibility. The quiet thrill of
Mm.
possibility. It's all about not knowing what's to come, not having that foresight of what's about to happen, but deep inside, there's that feeling of knowing that something great is going to happen. It's about asking God, hey, God, what's cooking? You know, that kind of thing. That God is planning something bigger and something greater for you.
I just love how you describe it. It's a contradicting thing, actually. The
Yeah, it
quiet
is.
thrill of
Yeah.
possibilities. So it's actually catchy. It's a reminder that life is an adventure. You've done a great point in saying that everything is a possibility. All possibilities lead into something that can make life beautiful and worthwhile. And
Yes.
wow, so what a conversation it has been. Thank you very much, Vince, for taking your time today and for inspiring and encouraging us to live that serenity, whatever we're at.
Thank you so much for having me here today and for giving me this opportunity, not just to share stories, but of course to inspire other people.
And I'm glad again that you said yes to this. Thank you very
Of
much again,
course.
Vince.
Thank you, Earl.